I thank you for inviting me to this interesting event. Let me share my screen. I don't know if you can see my screen now, because I don't know what do you see, but I hope that you can see my screen in a second.
I'm not seeing your screen.
One second. Okay. Yes, and now I move here. 1 second. I'm going for it here. Now, I hope.
Oh, okay, it's okay. Thank you.
Let me put this more. So again, well, it's a pleasure for me to be here. So thank you for inviting me to this event. And but I'm going to share with you is some highlights about trying to highlight about the situation of sustainability in higher education and especially in engineering education. And specifically, I think that I will put much more effort on the real experiences that we have at UPC since we started all this process in the last century, I would say. So let's start. I don't know why it doesn't now. Of course, one of the core values of sustainability is to share knowledge. So please feel free to use any information that I'm going to share with you. And it's under the Creative Commons system. So then any information that I'm going to share with you is to be used, and you think is interesting to be used, just have to say where it does come from. But the idea is that all information needs to be shared. Let's start by introducing our institution, UPC. UPC it's a typical technological university where we have different areas of engineering and technology focused, both in the area of teaching, where we have undergraduate, graduate, and PhD education, and also in the fields of research, which is a very typical polytechnical university. We have 7 research institutes, and one of those is the institute that I am now directing, which is the Institute of Sustainability Science and Technology. And this is very, very important to have an institute like that, and I will expand on that a bit later. But I think it's interesting to highlight the institute. Just to make a bit of context, we are in the northeast of Spain. We have around 30,000 students. We have around 70 undergraduate degrees, 80 masters, and 45 PhD programs. So it's I would say it's a big technological university. It's in Spain. We have 3 big technological universities in Valencia, in Madrid, and in Catalonia. And this is one of those. Let's start to focus a bit on sustainability. This is the leitmotif of our research institute in sustainability. So here you can see that we have, of course, it's a research institute. We have a lot of research on sustainability science and technology, but it's not environmental technology, it's sustainability science and technology, where we apply trans and interdisciplinary approaches, where we involve a lot society in all the process of research. It's we are of course there are some researchers we are still focusing very much on very technological elements that are needed, but we try to involve more society in all the processes and applying action research approaches. We are also using our university as a laboratory, so we are it's our research. It's quite linked to the sustainability campus management of the university, where we have projects on energy, mobility, waste, any kind of challenge that is in our society is also for our university. So we are using university as a laboratory, and this is interesting because then we can use this for our teaching also. So it's to use the university as a lab we used to call this approach Campus Lab for teaching sustainability. It's good for both the university and also for the teaching scheme. And we have also a master's degree and a PhD that I am showing here. We are coordinating a master's degree in sustainability science and technology. And this is, I think it's very important, because here we are training the future engineers. We have all kind of people here, but I would say 60–70% are engineers that have the master sustainability science, and are they going to be the change agents of the engineering arena? We think, well, this is our purpose. And also we have a PhD in sustainability, where we have around 100 students doing the PhD, and we are reading around 20 PhD dissertations per year. So it's very, very productive and very active, our PhD. And also we have long life learning programs like this one in circular economy, which is more oriented to the companies. And this is very important. It's very important to have a specific education for sustainability in a technological university, because this is the arena where we create new knowledge and new ways of doing things, and this allows us to improve the regular engineering degrees. In terms of research areas of our institute, we have on the, oops, there's an ambulance. You have in the left side the typical technological and environmental approaches, but then in the right side we have those are the research areas where we involve more. There we have more connection with society, and one of those is a research area in education, how to actually sustainability science education, and how to introduce sustainability in technological education. And this is actually my research group, where we have been working and researching on how to introduce sustainability competences in technological degrees. After just this context, let's just start. I think it's very interesting to see where do we come from and where are we facing, where are we going. So I will start with a bit of history, then I will explain why do we need to embed sustainability in the curriculum, what should be learned. Of course, this has to be very context and society oriented. Who are the key actors to lead and to be responsible of this process? How, which are the most efficient and effective pedagogical approaches, and where, which curriculum structure is usually used to introduce sustainability in the curriculum. And finally, I will spend a bit more of time explaining a bit our experience after 20 years. Here, just to put in context, where everything started in both levels. One on sustainability, sustainable development, and the other one in education for sustainable development. Sustainable development, well, it started the concept with the Brundtland Declaration and Brundtland Report, and it was, and I would say, used as an excuse that it was a diffuse concept. So then, because it was a diffuse concept, nobody knew how to handle it and how to introduce it in the curriculum. But this has been changes and have been evolving, as we are going to see. So we have here the key milestones for both sustainable development and education for sustainable development. And in 1998, already we have the first UNESCO World Higher Education Conference in relation to how to introduce sustainability in higher education. Afterwards, between 20 and 2015, the UN approved the Millennium Development Goals that I guess that all of you are familiar with, were focused basically to improve the situation in developing communities. And then we have the Rio +10, +20, and this year they're going to be the Rio +30 summits, which is going to be in October. This is on sustainability, but then on education for sustainable development, there has been an alignment with what was going on sustainability, and we have the first UN decade on education for sustainable development from 2005 to 2014. and some other conferences were going on. And then finally, what we have now is that 7 years ago, the Agenda 2030 was approved with the very well-known SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And there was the first Sustainable Development Goals Summit in 2019. And just 2 years ago, it started as a policy action plan, the Decade of Action and Delivery for the Sustainable Development Goals. And in October, we will have the next Rio Plus 30 Summit. So 30 years ago from the first Rio. And in terms of education, the UNESCO developed the Global Action Program on Education for Sustainable Development. And now we have the UNESCO Education for Sustainable Development for 2030. So it's quite aligned what is happening in terms of policies for sustainable development and in terms of policies for education for sustainable development. And actually next week, we are holding here in Barcelona the third UNESCO World Higher Education Conference, which is focused on how to make sustainability the core business of higher education. This is how it has evolved since for 50 years of history of that when we use the brand of sustainability, and now we are more focusing on SDGs. And that makes sense because sustainability, as I was mentioning before, it was quite diffuse concept, and now with the Sustainable Development Goals, it already gives you some key points where we should to focus both at political level, at both and also at educational level. This is a Sankey diagram, which I like a lot, what was just recently published, where you can see the different declarations. There are many declarations. Nothing happens, but declarations are in place. So it's easy to sign a declaration than to make it relevant. It's another issue. But there are many declarations for higher education. You can see all those declarations. But the thing that I like from this graph is that the items that they are asking the universities to focus. And it's about a moral obligation, public outreach, ecological literacy, understanding ecological as not only environmental ecology, but also social ecology, encourage sustainability research, partnerships, sustainable physical operations, which is a campus, sustainable campus, inter and intra-university cooperation. Universities are not very eager to collaborate internally, I would say. And which for me, it's a crucial one. It's also develop interdisciplinary curriculum. And in our case, we are a very just a polytechnical university. For us, is challenging because we don't have any degrees in humanities, and we have this interdisciplinarity. It's quite challenging for us. And even between, and I guess it's the same everywhere. Between technological universities, the Department of Fluid Mechanics doesn't cooperate very much with the Department of Mechanics, which seems to be almost the same name. So this interdisciplinarity collaboration, it's very hard, and this is related to the university culture and to also to the accreditation of faculty and the accreditation of degrees. But I will go to that afterwards. So this is a big the spectrum of the history of higher education related to the situation on how society has been somehow, at least politically, evolving on sustainability. But why do we need to introduce it? As I was mentioning before, we were moving from the 8 Millennium Development Goals, which were focusing on developing communities, and then since we approved the Agenda 2030, where the main difference is first, it was stating more specific targets or goals with all its targets. And it does not only apply to developing communities, but it interpeels all the everybody, all the countries. So there is room for improvements in all the countries, not just in the developing communities. So this is the why we have to work on all these 17 areas in order to improve the situation of our society. But what role does engineering and engineering education play in all those sustainable development goals? Well, there are a publication which appeared just last year. It's the second one. They make the first report in 2010, and now in 2021, we have this engineering for sustainable development. And I will just read what they say. Engineering plays a vital role in addressing basic human needs by improving our quality of life and creating opportunities for sustainable growth on a local, national, regional, and global level. So we play this vital role. So we need our engineers to play this role. So, but engineering needs a transformation. So we need that our engineering to be transformed to be more innovative, inclusive, cooperative, and responsible. So we need to change education in order for our engineering to do that. So we need to capacity build our graduates for the Sustainable Development Goals. And they specifically state that we need a broader interdisciplinary and complex problem-solving approaches. So interdisciplinarity is very relevant, and to train our students to solve complex, wicked problems that are what our society needs and which are related to the Sustainable Development Goals. But I will go a bit about why we need to introduce sustainability in the curriculum when I am explaining our UPC experience. And then we have, well, it's relevant, we need to do it, but what should we learn? And here, this graph is very interesting. It's from a publication last year from these people from Arizona State University. This is the number of publications on sustainability learning objective and competences. So you can see that it's a topic which is very relevant. So those are the number of publications focusing on what should be learned. And from all these ones, 29 are focusing on engineering degrees. So there is a lot of work done for engineering and what should be learned in terms of sustainability. This is one element that I would like to highlight. And then, of course, there are specific publications where they state what should be learned on sustainability. One of the most known is Education for Sustainable Development Goals Learning Objectives, published by UNESCO 5 years ago. And it's interesting because it defines 8 key sustainability competences: system thinking, anticipatory competence, normative competence, strategic competence, collaboration, critical thinking, self-awareness, and integrated problem solving. And those ones are transversal competence that any citizen, and I would say any engineer, may have when graduating. And it also defines more specifically 225 learning objectives for all Sustainable Development Goals. And specifically, it defines 15 learning objectives in 3 domains: the cognitive, the socio-emotional, and the behavioral. And I really like this scheme when we are trying to take all those competences to a degree. Here we have in the horizontal axis, we have the content dependent, how it's disciplinary competences that should be there. Don't forget, we are going to graduate engineers, so they have to know about engineering practice. But then there are these other key competences on sustainability. And here we can see that these key competences on sustainability can be categorized from a generic to a more specific point of view. General competences are this critical thinking, creativity, and lifelong learning. Professional competences, which is compassionate communication and responsive project management. And then we have the more specific ones, which are very related to sustainability, which are what they call the interpersonal competence, the intrapersonal competence, and then all the implementation competences, those are linked also to the ones I was mentioning before from the report from UNESCO. But I like this scheme because sometimes if we are only focusing on key sustainability competences, we try to forget the disciplinary competences, but they are complementary. And we need also to take those into account. And what is interesting is that sometimes those key competences are seen as well, system thinking. What does it mean, system thinking? What does it mean, future thinking? And there is a work also done by Arnim Wick from Arizona State University, where they state, is a proposal, what should be learned, which are the learning objectives for each of those key competences at 3 levels of knowledge: novice level, intermediate level, and advanced level. So here, this is in this publication, you can see more in detail what should we ask to our students to master when they graduate. So the idea here is to make it a concrete definition of, or specific definitions of what are we talking about when we are presenting all those key competences on sustainability. And just as an example of the more specific learning objective defined for each sustainable development goal, here this is just a shot from the publication where we can see the ones for responsible consumption and production. But I will say that they are, how they are defined, it's very diffused. For instance, we have in the cognitive level, the learner knows about the strategies and practices of sustainable production and consumption. Well, what is sustainable production? Which means of sustainable production are we talking about? And this is very related to engineering education. So then still it's very diffuse, and we need to make it more specific, and in order to introduce it in our regular courses. And this is the work that we have been doing at UPC, and I will share with you afterwards. So this is very generic. This is not related to engineering. So what about engineering education? What is relevant for engineering education? And this is what I'm going to share you with the UPC case study. Who is involved in all this process? Who are the key actors? And this is just one slide, or no, 3 or 4 slides. There are many actors involved, but the key ones are the university board, because it's the one that promotes, have the power to the top-down approach, defining a university vision and mission related to sustainability, a sustainability education strategy, and of course an action plan. And any strategy and action plan needs responsibilities and resources. Otherwise, we still keep on the declarations thing that we can sign, but nothing happens. So we need resources. Resources mean, at the end of the day, it means money to pay time, and money to give a space where all this can happen. But basically is to pay time of the faculty and researchers that are working in this area in order that they develop all these processes. Then we have the program directors, and those are the ones who have to work with the whole degrees and make it sustainability comprehensive in all the degrees, in all the degrees that they are coordinating. At the last, almost the last step of the system, we have the faculty, because they are the ones who are in the classroom doing the practice. In this case, the faculty are the ones which usually work with specific sustainability courses, if you have some, or introducing sustainability in regular courses. And they are the key elements that make this happen. So we have to involve faculty in all these processes. And also the students, which are the final target. It's very interesting to involve them in all the process when they, from the very beginning, from defining the vision, mission, and the strategy, and then also involve them in how this can be put in practice in the lectures. And this is our experience, and has been very, very interesting. And I will share with you also this experience. Let's talk about the faculty. Faculty engagement in sustainability education, and I called it this Talk It to Me. If we apply a very simple Pareto statistic approach to which are the profiles of the faculty that we can find in our faculties, in our schools of engineering, and the experience says that. I will just big numbers. I don't take it the figures as is qualitative, not quantitative. There are around 16% what we call the champions. Those are the ones who already are doing it, and whatever they will do it because it's in their core values to introduce sustainability in their teaching. We have the aseptic ones, which is more or less the same quantity. Those are the ones that think this is not relevant, have nothing to do with them. They think that sustainability it's a soft concept. They have to focus on real hard technological courses, etc. And with that, there is nothing to do. We decided just not to spend energy with this faculty and just wait that they retired, and there's nothing more that we can do. And then we have two groups, and the one which is the biggest one is the followers. Those are the ones that may follow the strategy, the university strategy, in order to improve the embedding of sustainability in engineering education. And this is the ones that we should target the most. And then from the more skeptical one, from the group of almost skeptical, we have the ones that need a lot of push in order to be involved. But there is room for improvements with all the followers, and this is the ones that we are usually focusing when we are designing strategies. And this is how the strategies should be applied. We have in the vertical axis attitudes for education for sustainable development. So we have from the very low attitude, which are the skeptics, to the very one, the champions. So the champions are going to do it anyway. The skeptics will never do it. So that's reality. But then we have all these followers that, depending on the context, if the context is it's good, it's very positive, then they will embed sustainability in the curricula. And this is where we have to develop strategies. And when we are, so it's a question of changing habits, changing practice. Which are the key elements where we are changing practice? Basically, there are two key elements. One is the attitude, which is the followers and may follow. We take out of this graph the champions because they will do anyway, and the selective ones because they will never do it. But also it's relevant where they may have a very good attitude or not so good attitude, but then there are the ability. They know how to do it. So depending on how do they fit under this scheme of ability to introduce sustainability in the curriculum and wishing to do it, there are different strategies. One is to sign it, this is the policy of the university, this is very relevant, you know how to do it, and you are eager to do it, so then it's just a bit of push. Then the ones who want to do it, but they don't know how to do it, you need to facilitate. So you need to develop training courses or coach them in their daily practice. And for the ones who know how to do it, but they don't really have a proactive attitude, so then it's a question of putting incentive on the table, so it will change their attitude. And those are the strategies that we are applying at our university, taking into account these different profiles. Of course, if you don't have the attitude and you are not able, you just push with the two key strategies, which is facilitating, training, coaching, and giving incentive. How to teach sustainability? And I like this picture very much. Well, actually, it's not a picture, it's a painting, because it's a 700 years ago university. Well, I don't know if it was called a university, but what can we see here? We see the professor giving a lecture. We see the first row of students very enthusiastic, but as we go further, we can see that there are some students sleeping or they're chatting. Yeah. Do you recognize this situation in your university nowadays? Yeah. And this is a 21st century university. Can you spot the differences? Well, There are, so, well, we have the female teaching, that's good, gender equality. We have high technology over there, but still we have some problems. But or not. I'm not saying that lecturing is not a good strategy. Lecturing is good for certain elements, but not the only one. And this has to do also. I would like to highlight a little reflection on learning. And we have to be aware that most of our students learn differently than we do. Different students learn in different ways. So there, if students learn in different ways, using only one teaching method is not good enough, because you will not reach all the students. Yeah. And then there is an interesting study from Rodrigo Lozano. Now she is in Gävle University in Sweden. And then he make an analysis of which pedagogical strategies are more effective to train in key sustainability competences. And then he was working on pedagogical approaches used in what they call universal, which are usually used in all disciplines, pedagogy is used in community and social justice, and pedagogy is used in environmental education. So he clustered the different pedagogical approaches under this categorization. So we have case studies, interdisciplinarity in teaching, lecturing, mind and concept maps, project or project-based, problem-based learning. Those are very typical in engineering, I would say. Then we have community service learning, interlinked teams, jigsaw, participatory action research, which is more from community and social justice. And then from environmental education, we have eco-justice and community, place-based environmental education, etc. So what do we see here? After making this analysis, we can see in the first column, we can see the key sustainability, a set of key sustainability competences. And then in green cell is when pedagogy address the competences. In yellow, when it may address, and when there is no color is when it doesn't address the competence. And I think that is very little. So this is why I highlighted here lecturing. Lecturing really does not address fully any of the key sustainability competences. So we should use lecturing now and then, because it's a good way to give information, a lot of information in a short period of time in an effective way. But then we need to escape lecturing, being lecturing as the only way of teaching. We should add other kinds of approaches in our lecturing, in our training, in our teaching. So this is here you can have and you have the reference which pedagogical approaches are most useful. And then our teachers need to be trained not only on the contents, but also in the pedagogical approaches. And I understand that all universities have their learning institute where you are training your teachers, but there are some pedagogical approaches that are very useful, that are not really well trained, at least in technological universities. And finally, of all this overall scheme, which is the curriculum structure. Basically, and this is just one slide, I will say that we have been analyzing, benchmarking what is happening basically in all the world in engineering education. And we have seen that there are, in what I call the formal education, there are 4 approaches, which are complementary. That doesn't mean that you are used just one thing. To have a specific course on sustainability engineering or sustainable engineering. We have at UPC one course the first year that the students enter to our university, have one course on sustainability. So the idea is that we see sustainability as, for instance, calculus. You have a course on math, you have a course on physics the first year. So the students those are the basic courses that they will afterwards apply in the more technological oriented courses. So we see sustainability the same. Sustainability is a basic course that you should apply afterwards in all the other courses. And to do that, we need a specific course on sustainability. We have some schools that have a minor in sustainability engineering. So if you take some courses on sustainability, which are usually elective, and your master, your undergraduate final studies thesis is related to a sustainability topic, you get a minor. Of course, embedding sustainability in all courses, and a specific degree, it can be undergraduate or master in sustainability. And this is interesting also, so because then within your university, you have a cohort of students which are developing new knowledge, students and professors which are developing new knowledge and new approaches that then can be brought to the regular engineering courses. And of course, there is what I call the informal education. We are running now and then hackathons, challenge contests. We have a challenge contest on, we call it Recircula Challenge on circular economy, living labs. That we have students living, literally living. We have developed, actually, the students have developed a house which is branded as sustainable, low no energy consumption and resources, and the students are living there, just to see how it is to live in such a house. So this is a kind of approaches that we have: the formal education, which is the 4 strategies, complementary, don't forget, and then you may have other informal elements where outside the curriculum students can participate. And I still have some time. So UPC experience. And I start with our, I think it's interesting also to put in context. We started in 1990 with the easy thing to do, where we have waste management system. And then, which was interesting, a really milestone was in 1996, where a cohort of professors which were concerned about sustainability issues created the UNESCO Chair in Sustainability. This was already in 1996. UPC approved the first environmental declaration, and with its environmental plans. Of course, we signed a declaration of the Copernicus Charter, but that's easy. And then we have the first plan related to environmental issues, the second one until 2005. In 2000, it was also a very interesting milestone because there we created the Master in Sustainability and the PhD in Sustainability, so almost 20 years, already 20 years ago. And then from 2005, we changed from environmental to sustainability. So now we were introducing a more comprehensive approach, also taking into consideration responsibility, social responsibility, etc. We have the sustainability declaration approved by the government of the UPC. We already have a vice rector for sustainability, giving value to sustainability issues. And in 2011, we created the institute that I introduced to you before, Institute for Sustainability Science and Technology. Now we are the different sustainability plans. The last one is for 2030. Now everything is 2030. And we have also specific plans for different topics like energy, circular economy, climate emergency, etc. We are aiming to create a department for sustainability science and technology. As we have a department on mechanics, we would like to have a department of sustainability science and technology. We are working on that because this gives you a possibility to hire professionals on this topic that nowadays is not possible. It's still not possible in the Spanish system. Let me put here. And what I introduced here is EdinSource. EdinSource are 2 projects that have been running and that have been very effective in order to embed sustainability in the curriculum. Which approach do we use at the university? We use what is called, what's known as the Integrated Sustainability Research and Problem Solving Framework, developed by Arne Wick, and where we have first the complex problem constellations in the current situation and their history, and this is the problem is related to how to embed sustainability in the curriculum. Then there is an intervention point. You have to develop sustainability visions. How do you want to be in the future? And those are the different sustainability UPC plans. And what happens if we don't intervene? And of course, which strategies need to be in place in order to take into account the current situation if we want to get to the sustainability visions. And this is how it works for UPC. We carried out a PhD, well, actually it was my PhD, on engineering education for a sustainable future, where we were analyzing which was the situation at UPC and technological universities in Europe. Then we developed sustainability visions, 2015, 2020, 2030, and we apply different strategies. And the intervention point, actually, in terms of degrees, one good intervention point was when Spain higher education system adopt the European higher education area, where you have to design all our degrees to be aligned with the ECTS scheme, etc., etc. And as we have to design all our education system, then it was a really good opportunity to change most of the system and introduce sustainability. And this is one of the reasons why we have one compulsory course in every undergraduate degree on sustainability. And then which strategies that we use? The first one that was very interesting and very crucial was to define what we call a competence on sustainability and social commitment that all graduates must have when graduating at UPC. If you have a transversal competence like this, then you force the degree directors to at least to think how this is going to happen in my degree. And then we have other programs that I'm going to share a bit with you. So this was the state of the art, which was the problem, which was the key elements. Well, it's open source, everything here. And then we make an analysis. And in this analysis, I would say that there are, of course, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. I will highlight the ones which I think are more relevant. There are innovators and champions. There are internal networks, or you can promote even internal networks easily within the faculty. Opportunities, there are sources of funding available, and nowadays there are even more because sustainability it's at the stake. There are some weaknesses. The incentive structure of academia in general, I would say, and a staff lack of comprehensive sustainability. We make a study and we realize that most of the faculty and even most of the students relate sustainability basically to environmental problems that technology can solve. And that's it. And sustainability, it's much more than that, actually, unlikely. More than that. And then threats, there is no pressure for accreditation agencies. In paper, there is, I would say, there are accreditation agencies ask for the degrees may have something related to sustainability learning, social awareness, etc. But then when the paper stands everything, but then when you see what is happening in reality in the classrooms, you see that nothing has changed very much. So I'm putting here no pressure from accreditation agencies is for both in the degrees, because they are not checking what is really happening in the classroom and they cannot certify that really sustainability is embedded, but also when we accreditate the tenure track. To get a tenure position in higher education, you don't need to demonstrate anything related to sustainability. And this is really a problem. I think that when sustainability is taken seriously, it has to be also a value when you are going through your academic career. And this is not us, and this is a threat, I would say. When we can readapt the role of the accreditation agencies, it's going to be a tipping point, I would say. Visions, well, we have different visions which are related to what do we expect from our students when they graduate. That was the first one. We created, and I like to share with you this program. This was the Sustainable Technology Excellence Program. And the idea here was institutional change for embedding sustainability at UPC Barcelona Tech. And this was financed by our regional government. So what we did here is to design specific courses on sustainability, to develop a concept and framework in all the disciplines, to create an interdisciplinary network. Remember that this interdisciplinary is coming now and then, so it's interesting to have this interdisciplinary network. And research, transdisciplinary research, because then related to technology, sustainability, and education, and this is where our group is working. Yeah. And we started a long time ago. We started with 5 schools of engineering with piloting, and we created in each school a network of people interested in working on sustainability. Then we split it to 11 universities, and now all the universities, all the schools of engineering, sorry, have its internal network on how to introduce sustainability in their curriculum. And so we through a top-down approach, we were creating a bottom-up. We were pushing for a bottom-up internal networks in each degree and in each school to apply sustainability how they think they should apply, because they are the ones who are going to, who have to do it. It's difficult to train the trainers, because sometimes they say, "What are you going to teach me on my topic that I know that I am the one who knows the better?" Yeah, well, then we have to use different approaches. And finally, I will share with you the EIDENSOS project. This is a project financed by the Spanish research agency, and it's we are 11. We are coordinating this project, and we are 11 universities with around 60 researchers and 13 degrees. And the objective, and I think that's relevant, we define a sustainability competency map. So remember that we were talking about learning objective, key competences, but then let's put it more specific that I can really understand what I should do in my course. So this is why we define the sustainability competency map. We were working about the how, also teaching strategies and capacity building, and also see what's going on in the courses, analyzing the students. In this case, this is under the Spanish higher education system. So we our Conferencia de Rectores de las Universidades Españolas approve 4 sustainability competences that all graduates may have when graduated in the Spanish system. Well, you can sign, but then again, it's a declaration. So the one is critical contextualization of knowledge, sustainable use of resources, participation in community processes, and application of ethical principles. Okay, good, but let's make it more specific. So this is what we did. We create what we call we create this for three fields of studies: for education, for the degrees that were training the teachers for primary, secondary school; for business sector, so for the studies for administration and business, and also for engineering, because this is our core business. So then we develop for each of the 4 competencies, we develop what we call a competency unit, a more specific definition of the competency, and then at 3 levels, and similar to the ones of the learning objective by the UNESCO, it's what they should know, what they should know how to do, and how it can be done, and to demonstrate that they can do it. Yeah. And this is published here. And I will go a bit on the details afterwards, but this is just to see which is the scheme. We design 53 learning outputs that our students must have when graduating. But we are not talking about learning objective. We are moving to learning outputs. So learning outputs, so then they are more easily measured, which then it's also one key element. How do we assess the learning on sustainability? About the teaching learning strategies, we were working with these 5 strategies, which are the ones which are very effective for learning sustainability competences, and we define very specifically how they should be applied in higher education systems, and you can find more information in this publication. And then the teachers, we were working with teachers. So we develop a questionnaire. We ask them about their practice, about their learning, or their understanding of sustainability. Just to sum up, We have for engineering, we have almost around 500 respondents, which is 9% of the population. Here we were three universities we were having engineering degrees. So I understand that those 9% that answer are the ones we are eager to answer. So imagine the other 91%. And from there, they still not much very agree that they master the competence. So we can see that there is still room for improvements from the 9 that answer the questionnaire. So because the ones which are in red is the ones which agree, and the ones which are in blue is the one which don't agree with the statement of the competence that this is relevant. So we can see that even the 10% more motivated to answer the questionnaire is still only 1/3 agree with the statement of the competence in engineering. We also did focus groups with them, and well, they highlight actually what it was in the SWOT analysis. The environmental dimension is overemphasized. There is need for training, and there is lack of awareness in faculty. There is absence of sustainability in study plans and teaching guides, and they ask for more institutional support. And this is good that you have this event here, because this is what I think is the topic. And you can see the results of these focus groups in this publication if you're interested. And then for students, well, there was here you have at the 4 competences, and at the beginning or at the end of the studies, there is an improvement from the beginning to the end, but still the maximum that they get is 60% of the competence. So they don't really get the whole competence. And which is the most lower is usually is the ethical ones. So we need to work much more on ethics. And we also carried out focus groups, and they recognize that the training is scarce and that they need more compulsory courses. Then that was the first Embedding source, which ended in 2019, and now we are in the second one, which is 2019-2023. And here we introduced the Sustainable Development Goals in the equation. Before they didn't exist, now they exist. So we thought that it was a good scheme, and we introduced. And this is an intervention project, so we are intervening in the degrees. The first one was making that diagnosis. So we identify. We define a new sustainability concept map, competency map, including sustainable development goals. And then we improve the sustainability learning. We design a course to build capacity in our faculties. So what we did was to check which of the 255 learning objectives of the publication from UNESCO are really related to engineering. And we highlight we can see here in red the ones which are not really related to engineering education, in green the ones which are related to any kind of engineering education, and the ones in yellow the ones which are related only to specific engineering degrees. For instance, you can see here in Zero Hunger, Sustainable Development Goal 2, Sustainable Development Goal number 2. If you are focusing it, analyzing it from the engineering degrees in agriculture, they have a lot to do. But the others, it's very, they cannot really do very much. At least at the undergraduate level. If you are working in master level, then it depends on the specification. So what we did was to reduce this 255 learning objectives to 68. So we recognize that 68 should be introduced in engineering. And this is how the competency map looks like. And you have here down the publication when you can check it. We have the competences in the first column, then we have the competence unit, and then we have all those are codes of each learning output. And here you have an example of the learning output related to the ethical competence. So what it should be known, what have to be able to do, etc., etc. And you have here the publication. But then looking more in detail, we were thinking, well, these learning outcomes, where we are analyzing the learning outcomes published by UNESCO with the target of each sustainable development goal. And we realized that some of the targets were not able to be fulfilled with the learning outcomes published by the UNESCO. So what we did was to analyze all our learning outputs of our sustainability map to the learning objective and the targets. And this is how our sustainability competency map covers all the sustainable development goals. Of course, the ones which are more covered are the related to production and infrastructure, which is sustainable development 12 and 9, also education, and then all the others. So we can see that our proposal seems to be comprehensive and makes sense. And what we did was also to reduce the sustainability competency map, because working with 53 learning outputs was difficult to involve teachers. So we reduced it, and now we have 38 as far as I remember. Well, we know what should be learned, and then what we did. Let's see what's happening in the classroom. Let's see what's happening in the degrees. So what we did was to analyze very in detail some degrees. And this is an example for a degree in engineering, industrial design, and product development. And we can see for this itinerary how the different competences are covered and how each course is covering the different competences. And we can see also this analysis for the different sustainable development goals. For each itinerary we can see which SDGs are covered to a certain extent, and also for different courses, each course what is covering. The idea is that if you are analyzing one degree, all this has to be 100%. So we are covering all what is needed to be covered for the different SDGs that need to be covered. So there is the area which is not covered is room for improvement. Of course, this is based on guides or guide of the courses. Then we need also to see what's going on in the classroom. I think, how much time do you have? 5 minutes, I guess. Finally, well, the sustainability map is now being applied at UPC, and we are introducing it in all the courses. One of the outcomes also is that faculty and students ask for more training. We are now developing an open educational resources database for sustainability education, and there's going to be a section in engineering linked to the competency map. So the idea is that I would like to work in my classroom this learning output, which are the resources that I can find related to this learning output. So it facilitates the work I have to do. And we have developed also a capacity building course for faculty. And this is our scheme that I wanted to share with you. Yeah, we have which is the situation, intervention points, have our visions, and then the different strategies. And just to finalize, I call this session today Embedding Sustainability to Enhance Engineering Education. How can it enhance engineering education to introduce sustainability? First, because it increases demand for engineering education. If we can show that engineering is working for the sustainable development goals, there are a lot of young people who are eager to enter to the engineering schools because they want to solve real problems. And we have seen this, that as we are introducing more sustainability in our courses, we also increase the number of female students, because all this care thing is quite related to there is still this gender imbalance, but it's there, and it's good also to increase the female students. It provides a comprehensive and globally accepted definition of a responsible university, so the image of the university changes. Offers a framework for demonstrating the impact. I don't know if, I guess that you are familiar with the impact ranking, where universities show how do they perform in sustainability issues in all the domains of the university, not only education, but outreach, policies, transparency, campus management, etc. It creates new funding schemes. Of course, it also supports collaboration with new external and internal partners. And also it's very interesting, it catalyzes pedagogical innovation. As long as we need new pedagogies to introduce sustainability, this also allows the innovation in this area. Some key readings that I think we should be aware of. The ones are related to higher education, how to introduce sustainable development goals in higher education, which is the role of engineering for sustainable development. And there, the two at the bottom are related to competences. Just last, I think was this year. Yeah, this year it was published, the European Sustainability Competence Framework. Here on the right, we have the UNESCO, and Europe have defined their own one. But it's not focused on higher education. It's just very comprehensive for all levels of education. So now we are working on to the style. What does it mean for engineering education? And I want to finish with this quote, which I think is interesting. This is from a US advisor on climate change and Yale professor. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it says, I used to think that top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science could address these problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with this, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation. And we, as scientists, or even engineers, don't know how to do that. So we need to involve in our teaching also humanities, I would say, and work on those really problems that we have, which are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And that's it from my side. I will say, in order to do that, you have to get dirty with your hands, practice, and learn from your practice. And obrigado por la atenção prestada. Thank you.